I've transmigrated, and I've become the domineering CEO's sister. Right now, I'm happily holding onto an 8 million yuan necklace gifted by the CEO's fiancé. The next second, my hopeless brother suddenly brings home a girl from the slums, insisting that they are true love. I object, I immediately shouted, standing up and stepping forward. My father, who was about to lose his temper, suddenly froze, and everyone else turned to look at me in unison. Brother, how could you do this? I quickly walked up to the two of them, looked at their tightly clasped hands, and spoke with heartfelt pain. Such an important matter, and you didn't even mention it to the family beforehand, insisting on bringing it up in front of both sets of elders. Since we were young, Dad has taught us that in life, one must know one's limits and act with propriety. Look at the way you're behaving now, making it seem like you're forcing everyone's hand. What kind of impression does that give? As I spoke, my father's expression gradually changed, and he looked at me with a pleased nod. My brother never expected that I, who had always been so immature, could say such words to educate him. He was instantly rooted to the spot, his face flushed red with shame and embarrassment. I sighed again, clasped my hands behind my back, and added earnestly, moreover, by choosing such an informal occasion, you not only lost face yourself but also showed a lack of respect for the lady beside you, my brother. The domineering CEO went from being full of confidence at the start to utterly ashamed now. He lowered his head slightly and stammered an apology. This matter, I really didn't think it through carefully enough. I'm sorry. After saying that, the two of them held hands and awkwardly left the Fu family together. I turned around, put on a sweet smile again, and obediently sat down next to my brother's fiancée, Jiang Yue. Sister Jiang, don't mind them. Please continue telling me about your study abroad experience in Germany. Jiang Yue gave a shy smile and continued chatting with me. Meanwhile, my father pulled Uncle Jiang aside, seemingly discussing something. I thought my brother would tone it down after what happened yesterday, but to my surprise, early in the morning, that girl from the poor neighborhood showed up in our living room again. If I'm not mistaken, she's holding a filthy duck in her arms. My eyes widened instantly, and I hurriedly slid down the railing from the second floor in my slippers, stretching out my Air Kong hand in a panic. Don't, as if this damn duck was deliberately trying to mess with me. It immediately jumped onto my exclusive lounge chair and left a few bold duck footprints on the cushion. Damn it, still a step too late. I stood in place, glaring at it angrily, my fists on both sides clenching tighter and tighter. That was made from royal-grade fabric my dad specially brought back from Belgium. To avoid wrinkling it, I usually only dared to sit on it for an hour a day, and now it's tainted with the smell of a stinky duck. Plop! Suddenly, a devilish voice completely shattered my hope. It actually dared to poop on it. I'm going to kill it. Sensing the murderous intent in my eyes, Chen Sisi quickly shielded the duck in her arms. Looking at me with a guarded expression, I forced down the anger in my heart, gritting my teeth as I spoke. Miss Chen, do you know how expensive the things at Dirted are? Chen Sisi stiffened her neck, showing no trace of apology on her face. I'm sorry, I'll work to pay you back. You can scold me, but don't hurt it. I was stunned. How can someone apologize with such righteous indignation? I held my forehead, feeling so angry that I almost laughed. Just as I was about to argue with her again, the doorbell suddenly rang from outside. Today, the housekeeper went out with my parents, so I had to run over and open the door myself. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Jiang Yumei walking over with a group of people. Yes, a whole group, and each of them was carrying several bags of exquisitely packaged clothes and handbags, making for quite a grand scene. Jiang Yumei took my hand and said gently, Yeah, I was in a hurry yesterday and only brought you a necklace. I really feel bad, so I had someone buy some small gifts today. Consider them as a token of our meeting. I casually glanced over. They were all international luxury brands, and limited editions at that, the kind you can't buy even with money. The next second, my eyes suddenly lit up with a laser-like glow, and I scurried over to look at them one by one. I finally ran 200 meters, thinking the line had finally come to an end, but with a sharp turn, there was actually an endless line following behind. I looked at Jiang Yue in shock, who covered her mouth and smiled shyly. I didn't know which brand Yaya liked, so I bought a little of each. Sis, you are my only sister. I rushed forward and threw myself into my sister's arms, crying tears of emotion. Jiang Yue suddenly noticed Chen Sisi watching eagerly from the side and politely said, Miss, If you like, you can also pick some from these. Chen Cece curled her lips and rolled her eyes disdainfully. I absolutely refuse. You're being so wasteful. Chen Cece. Can't stand the hypocritical ways of you rich people. Each one of you is extravagant and lives a life of luxury. You don't understand the hardships of us working class people at all, yet you pretend to be so kind. Jiang Yue had been taught from a young age to treat others with courtesy. She had never been confronted like this before and certainly didn't know how to start hurling insults. But I'm different. I came here through a book. You look down on us, then don't stay in my house. Shameless, and besides, Sister Jiang just wanted to give you a few clothes because she felt sorry for how shabby you looked. How does that make her insincere? Chen Cece gave me a sarcastic glance. Huh, good intentions, better not, I can't handle it. You rich young ladies are all high and mighty, completely unaware of the hardships of life. But we poor people have our own dignity, completely unaware of the hardships of life. As soon as the words were spoken, I pulled out a stack of charity donation certificates and threw them right in her face. This was the flood 5 years ago. I donated 1 million. This was last year's major earthquake in City C. I donated 5 million. This is a platform's program to support girls. I have funded daily necessities for at least 10,000 children. I skillfully explained each event on the certificates to her one by one, to show that these were not just for show, but for each incident. I had carefully looked into it and made donations based on the specific circumstances. Besides, all this money is from my own savings or hard-earned income. I haven't asked my parents for a single cent. I glared fiercely into her eyes and declared with conviction, and what about you? What contributions have you made to the general public or the country? Chen Cece was left speechless by my words, her face changing colors like a palette. She pointed at me, her tone noticeably weaker. Your family is so wealthy, of course it's easy for you to put on a show. How hypocritical. After saying that, Chen Cece glared at us fiercely and stormed out. I made an international gesture at Chen Cece's retreating back in exasperation, then turned around with a beaming smile and said, Sister, why don't you stay for dinner today? I'll go make some soup for you. Jiang Yue, who had no idea what was going on, nodded blankly. Okay. I glanced at that stubborn fool beside me and immediately revealed a triumphant smile. An hour later, yeah, I never expected you to be such a good cook. This is even better than what my 3-star Michelin chef makes. You're amazing. Jiang Yue took a bite and nodded enthusiastically, her eyes sparkling as she looked at me. I lowered my head shyly and chuckled. Sis, these are just ordinary home-cooked dishes. I thought you might not like them. We were eating with great relish when the door was suddenly kicked open with a bang. The loud bang startled me so much that I nearly dropped my chopsticks. I glanced at the door frame with a pang of heartache. This door was worth several million. Fu Yanzhou really has an endless supply of brute force, day in and day out. Jiang Yue, I usually tolerate whatever you do, but this time, you've gone too far. My brother strode over, his gaze cold and stern as he stared at Jiang Yue. Hearing this, I immediately put down the bowl in my hand and looked meaningfully at Chen Cece behind him. Even though I was the one who confronted her, she complained to my brother about Jiang Yue. You really know how to pick on the easy target. Noticing my sharp gaze, Chen Cece carefully tugged at my brother's clothes and pitifully hid behind him. Yanzhou, I didn't. Jiang Yue was so frightened that her face turned pale, and she hurriedly defended herself. Fu Yanzhou sneered. I was only away from home for half a day, and you've already bullied Cece like this. Now you're pretending to be innocent. What a clever trick. Wrong from the moment she arrived. Jiang Yume's eyes instantly welled up with tears as she looked at me helplessly, thinking of that room full of glittering luxury goods. I immediately spoke up. Brother, how do you know it was Sister Jiang who bullied her? Fu Yanzhou frowned impatiently and said matter-of-factly, Cece told me herself. How could it be false? Clearly, Jiang Yue is taking advantage of her position to bully others. Cece was even scared to tears. I sneered and immediately pulled up the surveillance footage from the morning to show him. The picture is not only clear, but it also covers every angle, and even the timbre of each person's voice is perfectly restored. A flicker of guilt flashed in Chen Cece's eyes as she stammered in a low voice. This surveillance, how does it have sound too? So she thought she could casually frame others just because there was no sound. I exaggeratedly covered my mouth and laughed, deliberately giving her a sidelong glance. Oh, I've never seen this before. Didn't you say our family is wealthy? Surely we haven't fallen so low as to use a silent surveillance camera, have we? Seeing Chen Cici's face suddenly turn pale. I picked up my phone again and shoved the screen right in front of Fu Yanzhou. See, it was clearly her who started with the insults first, and now she's crying from fear. Ridiculous. Even with such solid evidence, Fu Yanzhou remained expressionless as he stepped in front of Chen Cici, his face cold and stern as he said, Cici was never good with words, and you all were too aggressive, so she only retorted a few times. She's all alone and outnumbered, why must you insist on competing with her? Alright, so all my effort in checking the surveillance footage and explaining everything was just a waste, right? I glared at him fiercely, deciding to just let it all out. Yes, your Cici is the kindest, I apologize. Are you satisfied now? Since you know you were wrong, then, Fu Yanzhou's words were abruptly cut off by Chen Cici's sudden scream. Fu Xia, where's my duck? Finally noticed. I leaned back in my chair contentedly, deliberately let out a burp, and gestured with my chin toward the pile of bones on the table. Chen Cici was practically fuming with anger. It's not for eating, it's my pet, I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to, you won't blame me, will you? I stood up and sincerely bowed to her, blinking my eyes innocently, but Chen Cici suddenly covered her face, leaned into Fu Yanzhou's arms, and burst into loud sobs. Fu Yanzhou's expression, which had just softened, immediately turned grim and terrifying once more. Fu Xia, I think Dad has been far too indulgent with you, you're capable of doing anything. Chen Cici wiped away her tears while sobbing and spoke, I've been without parents since I was little, raised by my grandparents. This duck has grown up with me since childhood, and it's practically like family to me. With that, she looked at me through tear-filled eyes, crying as if pear blossoms were drenched in rain. Miss Fu, I know you dislike me, but why did you have to target it? It was innocent. After she finished speaking, Fu Yanzhou looked at her with heartache, then turned a gaze full of hatred toward me, as if I hadn't killed a duck, but a living person. This time, before I could even act, Fu Yanzhou suddenly took the initiative. Jiang Yue, it must have been you who incited my sister to do these things. How can your heart be so malicious? What does this have to do with her? I will never marry you no matter what, so you might as well give up on that idea. After saying that, he actually just picked up the sobbing Chen Cici and walked straight out the door, not giving Jiang Yume any chance to explain. That was the first time I saw Jiang Yume, who always maintained elegance and grace at every moment, show a look of utter dejection for the first time. On the way to take Jiang Yue home, I couldn't help but ask her, Sister Jiang, after all he's done to you, are you still going to marry him? I don't know. Jiang Yue's gaze drifted toward the window, a rare look of confusion in her eyes. But if I don't marry him, who else could I marry? She murmured softly, her voice as light as a falling feather. Do you like him then? Jiang Yu slightly furrowed her beautiful brows and slowly shook her head. Like him? Actually, I'm not very familiar with him, let alone liking him. But ever since I was little, everyone around me has told me that Fu Yanzhou is the best marriage partner, and marrying him would be the best choice for me. Even my parents always say that. Here we go again. How is Fu Yanzhou that great? The protagonist's halo is truly powerful. Unfortunately, Jiang Yume couldn't hear the complaints in my heart and continued on her own. Since I was little, I've never made my parents angry. So I think if I can't marry Fu Yanzhou, they'll be very disappointed in me. As she said this, a fleeting pain flashed in her eyes. Won't happen. I quickly took Jiang Yue's fair and delicate hand, looking at her earnestly. Your appearance and family background are top-notch. Your personality is steady and kind. You are proficient in 8 languages, and you even earned a PhD in engineering from Germany at such a young age. With all these qualities, how could you possibly disappoint them? Jiang Yue was taken aback for a moment, and a spark seemed to light up in her eyes. Really, even if I can't marry him, it doesn't matter. I nodded emphatically. Of course, you are already an excellent person. Marrying anyone, or not marrying at all, will not affect your own perfection. If you don't like him, then break off the engagement. Your parents will surely understand. So, Sister Jiang, be brave and follow your heart. Jiang Yume was lost in thought for a long time that day and didn't speak again until we got out of the car. I didn't see her again in the following days. On Monday, I arrived at the company on time. Work was already annoying enough, but I didn't expect it to get even worse. Chen Sisi, wearing the uniform of the Fu Corporation, stood stiffly beside Fu Yanzhou and took the same elevator as me. I decisively chose to turn a blind eye and ignored the two of them, of course. It seemed they didn't pay much attention to me either. President Fu, I don't understand this document. Chen Sisi pointed at the document in her hand and shook her head with feigned distress. Fu Yanzhou let out a low chuckle and said dotingly, I really can't do anything about you. Come to my office later, and I'll teach you personally. The next second, the two of them pressed tightly together again, like magnets. My heart tightened, and I closed my eyes, my face ashen. Those few seconds felt even more unbearable than a math class. Ding dong, a crisp, pleasant sound rang out. Finally, it had arrived. As soon as the elevator slowly opened halfway, I couldn't wait to squeeze out and sprinted back to my private office. The assistant Xiaojiu, who had just brushed past me, stood in place looking utterly bewildered. Young Master Fu, there's still a full 5 minutes until the clock-in time. Don't you always enjoy the thrill of cutting it close and arriving at the last minute? Leaning against the door, I gasped for breath and waved my hand with difficulty. It's not that. Just now, behind me, there was a ghost. Xiaojiu glanced back, baffled, and muttered softly, in broad daylight, where could there be a ghost? She immediately closed her mouth and understood the situation as soon as she saw Fu Yanzhou and Chen Sisi. I have never underestimated Chen Sisi's ability to cause trouble. Sure enough, she did not disappoint me. Miss Fu, Yanzhou asked me to bring you a cup of coffee. Oops, I hadn't even had time to look up before Chen Sisi unleashed her ultimate move, a trip on flat ground, spilling coffee all over my laptop. If it had been just a cup of coffee, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But, who the hell serves coffee by pouring from an entire pot? According to the arc of her fall, the spill was quite even. Every document and computer on the entire desk was not spared. If I hadn't dodged quickly, I'd be taking a coffee bath right now. With a loud thud, Chen Sisi gracefully fell to the ground. Hearing the sound, Fu Yanzhou rushed in and held Chen Sisi in his arms. Fu Xia, how dare you hit her? Me. Chen Sisi quickly grabbed Fu Yanzhou's sleeve to explain. No, Yanzhou, you've misunderstood. I fell on my own. This time she was smart enough to know that there are surveillance cameras everywhere in the office, so she told the truth. The next second, Fu Yanzhou helped Chen Sisi stand up, carefully checking her wounds, his heart filled with anxiety. How are you? Where did you fall? Is it serious? Where does it hurt? Do you need to go to the hospital? Chen Sisi blushed and shyly shook her head. I'm fine. Please don't look, Miss Chen. Since you're physically fine, let's talk about work now. To prevent them from continuing to cause trouble in my office, I quickly took over her words. Then I deliberately opened the door so that the employees outside could hear our conversation. There are 5 computers and 33 paper documents here. However, due to your recent negligence, they have all been destroyed. How do you plan to remedy this? I pointed to the messy desk, adopting a strictly businesslike attitude. Chen Sisi hemmed and hawed for a long time, finally managing only to stammer out, but I really didn't mean to. I sneered coldly, pressing my advantage. Does not meaning to do it mean you don't have to take responsibility? If you accidentally killed someone, would you not have to go to jail either? Fu Yanzhou finally couldn't hold back and spoke up to defend her. Fu Xia, don't twist the argument. This is not the same thing at all. Fine, then let's stick to the facts. Miss Chen, please answer the earlier question. How will you make amends? I quickly posed the question, my eyes fixed intently on Chen Sisi. Didn't you just say I was aggressive before? Now let them see what real aggression looks like. Chen Sisi's eyes instantly reddened again, and with a choked voice, she pointed at me and said, Fu Xia, you just want to drive me away, don't you? Fine, I'll leave then. I quit. She tore off her work badge from her neck and tried to storm out. But Fu Yanzhou grabbed her arm, gritted his teeth, and glared at me. You're not going anywhere. As long as I'm here today, no one dares to make you leave. I raised an eyebrow indifferently. In that case, Mr. Fu, please explain how you plan to handle this matter. It's just a few documents, no big deal. He glanced at the desk, looking rather dismissive. Documents that reach our hands are never ordinary materials. Reorganizing them would require a significant amount of manpower and resources. But why should other employees bear the responsibility for Miss Chen's mistake? I deliberately raised my voice, and many employees outside had already looked over curiously, noticing their gazes. Fu Yanzhou immediately darkened his expression. Are there really no backups for just a few documents? Of course there are backups, but unfortunately, your wonderful assistant here has managed to crash every computer that had backups. I looked at the other two computers that had been knocked over by Chen Cici's fall. If you can't give me a reasonable explanation, I'll have no choice but to call the police, to investigate whether Miss Chen is a corporate spy hidden within our company. Chen Cici was completely panicked, her knuckles turning white from gripping the hem of her clothes, beads of sweat forming on her forehead as she helplessly clung to Fu Yanzhou's hand. Fu Yanzhou protectively shielded her behind him. Lifting his chin to speak coldly, I am the general manager. If I say it's fine, then it's fine, although Fu Yanzhou is the general manager and I am the deputy general manager. According to my father's intention, we are to manage the company together, learning from and promoting each other. His subordinate made a mistake, yet he still puts on the airs of the general manager. What, does being the general manager mean you don't have to follow the company's rules? I crossed my arms, leaning against the wall as I asked him. Fu Yanzhou's expression was as dark as it could get, shooting me a warning glance. Fu Xia, even if you want to make a scene, there should be a limit. Everyone knows perfectly well who the true heir of the Fu family is. Don't be afraid, Cici, let's go. Watching the two of them walk away side by side, I instead narrowed my eyes in delight. It seems Chen Cici is truly important to him, to the point where he would go so far as to threaten me. As soon as I got home in the evening, I found a row of people dressed in white standing in my yard, wondering who my family had offended. I quickly shouted several times, Mom, Dad, what are you yelling about again? My mom rushed over and scolded me, saying this was a screening for chefs. I curiously craned my neck. Mom, why are you suddenly making such a big fuss? My mom immediately gave me a smack on the back of my head. Silly girl, your birthday banquet is just half a month away. I need to prepare in advance. Birthday banquet. I blinked my eyes. Could it be the kind of super luxurious birthday banquet like the ones on TV? With the family being so wealthy, it definitely won't be any less impressive than those. Feeling good makes work more energetic. To enjoy a few days of fun after my birthday, I've been working tirelessly day and night for the past 2 weeks and finally completed the work for the next 3 months. On my birthday, wearing a pretty little dress, I rushed over to Jiang Yue, whom I hadn't seen in a long time. She seemed a bit thinner, but there was something different in her eyes. This is truly the most extravagant birthday party I've ever seen. A massive fireworks display, glowing patterns formed by thousands of drones, a 2-story spread of food, and a 5-meter-tall castle cake. Just as I was happily accepting everyone's blessings, closing my eyes and clasping my hands to make a wish, Chen Cici, not far away, suddenly spoke softly. Is all this huge cake just for Miss Fu alone? I think it's a bit wasteful. As soon as the words were spoken, everyone around, including me, turned to look at her. Chen Cici thought her words had resonated with everyone, and even took a step forward, standing right in front of me. Miss Fu, do you know how much it costs to host a birthday party like this? Do you know that this single cake could be a year's expenses for many ordinary families? Then, she turned around again, trying to persuade the guests attending the banquet. Think about the children in impoverished mountainous areas. How can you have the heart to indulge in lavish feasting here? After delivering her impassioned speech, Chen Cici's eyes welled up with tears once more. The whispers among the surrounding guests grew louder, and the entire scene began to spiral out of control. Seeing this, Chen Cici cast me a confident, triumphant smile. The next second, I flashed a big smile, spread my arms, and walked toward her. Chen Cici was taken aback, hesitantly opening her arms slowly, just like I did, but I walked past her and hugged a little girl in tattered clothes standing behind her. Behind the little girl, there was a group of adorable children, their eyes sparkling as they looked at me. Miss Fu, thank you for inviting us to your birthday. We don't have anything particularly special, but here are some local products. Just a small token of our appreciation. A short-haired woman with dark skin walked at the very back, struggling to carry 2 bags in her hands. I already told you not to bring anything. It's already quite a journey for you to come all this way. I quickly stepped forward, deftly taking the bags from her hands, not minding at all that my pristine white dress was getting stained with mud. No, if it weren't for Miss Fu, The children wouldn't have had the chance to come to such a big city. The woman quickly waved her hands. A simple and honest smile spreading across her face. You must be hungry after such a long journey. Go ahead and eat. Have whatever you like. It's on me. I waved to the children and instructed the butler to take them to their seats. Fu Yanzhou has always been particular about cleanliness, and one excited child accidentally brushed against his pant leg while running over. He immediately stepped back several meters with a look of disdain, impatiently reminding me, Fu Xia. Don't bring just anyone into the house. Enough is enough. I stepped forward and retorted loudly. They are children from the mountainous areas that I support. In my heart, they are like family, not just anyone, even if you don't like it. Could you please be a little more tolerant? As soon as the words fell, the entire venue fell into a sudden silence. Almost everyone, as if by tacit agreement, turned their condemning gazes toward Fu Yanzhou. Fu Yanzhou, his face dark, stepped aside and stopped arguing with me. At that moment, an elderly couple dressed in simple clothes slowly walked in from outside. They didn't look well, supporting each other as they slowly walked in. I quickly searched my mind but had no recollection, hesitantly asking, Are you also here to see me? No, we're here to see Miss Jiang. The elderly woman extended her thin arm, pointing at Jiang Yue beside me. Jiang Yue, upon seeing her face, revealed a delighted smile, walked over, and warmly took her hand. Grandma, what brings you here? Miss Jiang, I came to thank you. My son's illness is finally curable. As she spoke, the elderly woman excitedly bent her knees, as if she wanted to kneel down. Jiang Yumei quickly supported her. No need to thank me. I just wanted to do what I could. According to the old woman, her son was originally an ordinary worker. A few months ago, he accidentally fell from a height and suffered severe brain damage. Seeing this situation, the person in charge of the construction site actually ran away secretly, leaving the two elderly people without a single penny in compensation. At that time, not to mention the surgery fees, they could barely afford even the most basic hospitalization costs. It was at this moment that they happened to meet Jiang Yumei, who was at the hospital for a checkup and was willing to help them unconditionally. Not only did she find the best doctor for her son, but she also covered all the subsequent medical expenses. Sister Jiang, you're truly amazing. After hearing this, I immediately cast a look of shock and admiration toward Jiang Yue. Jiang Yue smiled sheepishly, the determination in her eyes growing clearer. Over the past few months, I thought a lot and realized you were right. I need to be braver. Our side was filled with joy and harmony, leaving only Chen Sisi and Fu Yanzhou awkwardly standing in place. I glanced at Chen Sisi and sneered, Miss Chen, someone who only talks big has no right to criticize us. Everyone's gaze once again focused on Chen Sisi. However, this time, everyone's eyes were filled with mockery. Chen Sisi's face flushed bright red as she hurriedly defended herself. What's so great about that? If I were as rich as you, I could donate to others too. I swirled my glass of red wine, smiling even more cheerfully. As the saying goes, no good deed is too small. In that case, why not donate a little, Miss Chen? In the end, under the pressure of everyone watching, Chen Sisi had no choice but to let me take advantage of her. After the banquet ended, almost all the guests had left. Jiang Yumei nervously pursed her lips, suddenly walking up to my parents and saying, Uncle, Aunt, I have something I'd like to discuss with you. I want to break off my engagement with Fu Yanzhou. Calling off the engagement. Upon hearing this, Fu Yanzhou immediately turned his head, his eyes filled with disbelief. He seemed surprised that Jiang Yumei, who had previously insisted on marrying no one but him, was now suddenly willing to break off the engagement. A flicker of unease crossed Chen Sisi's face as she quickly grabbed his sleeve. Looking at him pitifully, Yanzhou, don't you want to? Fu Yanzhou seemed provoked by this and reverted to his usual dismissive demeanor. How could that be? I can't wait to call off the engagement with her. My parents fell silent for a moment before finally nodding in agreement. Deep down, they also understood that the Jiang family was an excellent match, but forcing two people together would never lead to a good outcome. With their approval, Jiang Yumei finally showed a relieved smile. She turned and took my hand. Yeah. Thank you for encouraging me. I'm planning to return to Germany to continue in-depth research on my project. Once I achieve results, I'll come back to the country, and I'll definitely be able to help more people by then. The next day, Chen Sisi also left. She left a letter for Fu Yanzhou. Yanzhou, This place ultimately doesn't belong to me. I'm going to find a place where I can belong. Many words omitted here. Don't come looking for me. Fu Yanzhou crumpled the letter into a ball and threw it fiercely on the ground, his face filled with a violent expression. Dispatch all the helicopters at home and come with me to find her immediately. According to the people below, Chen Sisi had run quite far this time, all the way to the other side of the ocean, after enduring countless hardships and mobilizing endless resources, manpower, and finances. Fu Yanzhou finally found her, at this moment. The two should have reconciled and are now enjoying a sweet vacation abroad. Great, everything is unfolding exactly as I anticipated. A few days later, just as I expected, Fu Yanzhou, having been away from his position for an extended period, soon encountered a major oversight in his business dealings. This time, it brought significant losses to the Fu family. The chairman, who is also my dad, threw a huge tantrum at the company. Where is your general manager? Tell him to come see me right now. A trembling assistant stepped forward, bowing his head and whispering an explanation. Chairman, General Manager Fu is still on vacation in Europe. He probably won't be able to make it back in time. My dad's face darkened even more, and everyone in the room, board members and employees alike, held their breath, not daring to make a sound. In fact, this matter is not without a remedy. As soon as these words were spoken, the surrounding employees immediately cast grateful glances at me. The disruption of the supply chain and the breakdown of negotiations this time clearly indicate that someone is secretly suppressing us. Therefore, we can turn their scheme to our advantage, appearing to be overwhelmed on the surface while secretly seeking new supply chains behind the scenes. This will make the other party let their guard down, allowing us to expose the mastermind in one fell swoop. As for the new supply chain, I happen to have a friend abroad who has connections. I just contacted her, and she said it's no problem. After hearing my advice, my father's expression gradually softened a lot. He nodded and finalized the plan. All right, let's do as you say. Everyone was still shaken and rushed to leave the meeting room. Shiyu, just as I turned around and was about to leave, my father suddenly called out to me, starting tomorrow, you will take over as chairman. Dad, my eyes widened in disbelief. Wasn't my brother the heir you've been grooming since childhood? My father stood up, his expression complicated as he looked out the window. In the business world, what matters most is not just ability and intellect, but also a sense of responsibility. You have excelled in all these areas, and I believe you can lead the Fu family to even greater heights. As for your brother, when it came to Fu Yanzhou, he let out a heavy sigh. He may not be suited for this position. A few months later, I quickly became familiar with the general manager's business. Meanwhile, Fu Yanzhou also returned to the country with Chen Sisi. On the day of his return, he stormed straight into my office. Fu Xia, did you tamper with the money in my card? He has been out enjoying himself for so long, yet there is not a hint of joy on his face, probably because he hired so many people to accompany him abroad. But he can't afford to pay their salaries. I continued to stare at the document in my hand, replying to him without looking up. The money on your credit card has all been used to cover the losses from your team's failed projects. As for the rest, it's all family money. From now on, if you want to spend, you'll have to earn it yourself. Fu Yanzhou rushed forward, nearly driven mad with anger. How dare you? Only then did I lift my head, meeting his gaze squarely, because I am now the general manager of the Fu group. Fu Yanzhou finally sensed something was wrong. Staggering back 2 steps, his face filled with disbelief. How is this possible? How is this possible? It can't be. Who made this decision? It's me. My father walked in from outside the door with a grim expression. Dad, have you lost your mind? Fu Yanzhou had completely lost his composure by now, no longer maintaining his usual aloof image. This is the position of general manager. How can it be given to a woman? I am the heir of the Fu family. My father shook his head, the disappointment on his face evident. In the company, only ability matters, everything else is baseless, and your sister is more qualified for this position than you. Fu Yanzhou's eyes reddened at the corners as he revealed a frenzied smile, nodding to himself. Fine, just fine, I might as well leave this family. Upon hearing this, Chen Sisi hurriedly stepped forward to stop him. Yanzhou, don't be impulsive. Why don't you apologize to your father, as expected of the female lead? She's quite clever. She knows which is more important, face or property. But who is my brother, a young master who has always had the final say since childhood? Only others beg for his forgiveness. How could he ever take the initiative to apologize? Cece, I will never yield to him. From now on, even if I die outside, I will never return to this home or set foot in the Fu family again. Fu Yanzhou's attitude was resolute. This time, he was determined to leave. After they left, Chen Cece came to see me again in the afternoon. She wanted to beg me to take Fu Yanzhou back. I remember Miss Chen once said something like this: as long as you and Fu Yanzhou can be together, you'd be willing to have nothing at all. I couldn't help but be deeply moved by your sincerity, so, I wish you a lifetime of happiness together. I said these words with a smile, then without hesitation closed the villa's front door. Time flew by in the blink of an eye, and another spring arrived. What are you doing? Let go of me. This is my family's company. Do you believe I can fire you all? A disheveled man blocked the entrance of the company, shouting like a madman. Facing the man restrained by the security guards, I smiled and waved to greet him. Brother, long time no see. Fu Xia, you are despicable and shameless. Give me back my position. Give it back to me. The moment the man saw me, it was as if he had been struck by some kind of stimulus, struggling desperately like an enraged lion. Brother, everything was handed over by you yourself. How can you blame me? I spoke coldly, looking down at him from above. Yanzhou, why are you here again? Chen Cece, holding a child, suddenly appeared at the company entrance, limping as she walked. At this moment, her face looked haggard and worn out. Her disheveled appearance was very similar to when they first met, yet it inexplicably lacked a certain liveliness. Fu Yanzhou had just been rebuffed by me and was absolutely furious. He suddenly broke free from the security guards, turned around, and grabbed Chen Cece by the collar, completely disregarding the child in her arms, shaking her wildly. It's all because of you, you wretched woman. You're the one who brought me to this state. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have ended up like this. It's all your fault. Fu Yanzhou roared in rage and suddenly threw a punch. The sudden, powerful impact nearly sent Chen Cece flying. The child almost fell to the ground, but fortunately, Chen Cece held on tightly to protect them. Looking at the state they were both in now, I calmly said, call the police. As for Fu Yanzhou's outcome, I was not at all surprised. In the business world, everyone is just a fair-weather friend. With the Fu family's backing gone, no one would bother with Fu Yanzhou anymore. On top of that, his previous arrogant attitude had offended many people. After his downfall, his former partners were all eager to kick him while he was down. Nowadays, Fu Yanzhou is not only impoverished but also heavily in debt. However, he isn't completely destitute. After all, he finally got the love he had always dreamed of, didn't he, Mr. Fu? Miss Jiang will be getting off the plane in 20 minutes. Watching Fu Yanzhou being escorted away by the police, I smiled. Let's go to the airport. In life, there is much to look forward to beyond love and marriage. The end. A strange man broke into my cousin's room in the middle of the night, and she desperately cried out to me for help. I grabbed a kitchen knife and fought the man, but she hid in the bedroom and refused to help. As a result, I was struck in the back of the head by the man, developed dementia, and became unable to care for myself. She was completely unharmed, and after seeing that the man was handsome, she even opened the door to let him go. When the police questioned my cousin about the fugitive's appearance, she said she hadn't gotten a good look. Later, my cousin couldn't get married due to her bad reputation and became the old maid everyone in the village laughed at. She believed that I had caused her to miss the chance to sleep with the handsome man and that reporting to the police had ruined her reputation. So she held a grudge against me. Under the pretense of visiting me, they sent my parents away and held me down in the foot basin, drowning me alive. In this new life, I returned to the night my cousin cried out for help. I was reborn on the night the intruder broke in to commit rape. Amidst my cousin's sharp cries for help, I jolted awake from my bed. The agony of drowning felt so real. I can still feel that suffocating sensation of being unable to breathe. It was as if a giant hand had gripped my heart, its fingers slowly tightening until the entire organ was crushed. The scene of my cousin calling out to me for help in my past life is still vivid in my mind. Her piercing screams and cries stirred a flood of sympathy within me. I couldn't bear to see my cousin, who grew up with me, being humiliated by a stranger. It would take some time for the police to arrive, and by then, the perpetrator might have already succeeded, so, disregarding my own safety. After calling the police, I grabbed a kitchen knife and rushed into my cousin's room. When I turned on the light, the perpetrator was instantly exposed. After seeing the robber's face clearly, my cousin's resistance came to an abrupt halt, the man's handsome appearance perfectly aligned with her aesthetic preferences, and for a moment, she was so captivated that she forgot the dangerous situation she was in. Facing a man who stood a head taller than me and was twice my size, my hand, gripping the kitchen knife, trembled slightly as I tried my best to muster a threatening tone and said, "I've already called the police. If you want to save your life, get out of here now." After saying that, I stepped aside from the bedroom door. I knew very well that I was no match for the man in front of me, so I had no choice but to back down. I prayed he would take the opportunity to leave, although this approach felt cowardly. It would minimize the harm. The man was about to call it a day and seemed to have the intention of leaving. My cousin, who had been hiding behind me trembling and blushing, suddenly mustered up courage from somewhere. She actually spread her arms wide, blocking the man's escape route, and she said to the assailant with an air of superiority, "You're not allowed to leave. I've already seen your face clearly. Do you think running away will solve everything?" The thug's eyes instantly turned fierce as he kicked my cousin aside, who was blocking the way. He also took advantage of my unpreparedness and snatched the kitchen knife from my hand. He swung the kitchen knife and slashed at my cousin. My cousin was so frightened that she burst into tears, clinging to my leg and hiding behind me. The assailant slashed at my arm with a knife, nearly severing it. I kicked him in the crotch, and as he writhed in pain on the ground, I quickly covered the blood seeping from my arm and dashed to hide in my bedroom. Seeing this, my cousin followed closely behind. She had just entered the bedroom halfway when the assailant grabbed her hair and dragged her viciously into the living room. Ignoring the pain in my arm, I grabbed my cousin's thigh and engaged in a tug-of-war with the assailant. But my strength was ultimately no match for the assailant's, and I could only watch as my cousin was dragged out of the bedroom door. Now, I was struggling to protect myself and at one point considered giving up on my cousin to save my own life. My cousin was crying her heart out, reaching out helplessly for my help. Left with no other choice, I had to find another way to save her. Suddenly, I remembered there was another kitchen knife in the kitchen, so I rushed there in a panic to get it. Just as I grabbed the knife, the intruder in the living room let out a sudden, agonized scream. My cousin bit down hard on the thug's thigh, tearing off a bloody chunk of flesh. The thug let go of her in pain, and she quickly darted into my bedroom, locking the door behind her. I had just come out of the kitchen with a cleaver in hand and was stunned by the scene. Seeing my cousin escape, the thug turned his fierce gaze toward me. I was terrified. He blocked the doorway to the living room, preventing me from leaving, so I had no choice but to retreat to the kitchen and lock the door from the inside. However, the kitchen door was made of translucent glass. The enraged assailant, driven by a murderous frenzy, frantically hacked at the door with a kitchen knife. The loud banging on the door filled me with dread. I watched in horror as the glass door was struck by the assailant, creating a crack. 2 cracks appeared, and from them, countless fractures began to spread. Finally, with a crash, the entire glass door shattered. When the intruder broke in, intense fear left my mind blank, and I could only swing the kitchen knife wildly at him. At the same time, I screamed for help from my cousin, hoping she would come out to assist me, but it wasn't until the intruder struck the back of my head with the kitchen knife that I collapsed in a pool of blood and lost consciousness. My cousin never came out from beginning to end. The police sirens downstairs intimidated the assailant, and the cleaver hanging over my heart never came down. He frantically wiped away fingerprints from the scene and even turned on the gas stove, attempting to blow up the house and destroy all evidence. After cleaning up the scene, the assailant was about to flee. My cousin came out of the bedroom upon hearing the police siren. I don't know what was going through her mind, but not only did she not stop the assailant, she even eagerly helped him open the door. As a result, the assailant smoothly escaped down the stairs and disappeared into the night. My cousin looked at me lying in a pool of blood, but instead of urgently calling for an ambulance, she went to her room to change into clean clothes. She even took her time to put on some light makeup. Only then did she go to open the door for the police. When the police asked if there were any casualties, she instinctively shook her head and deliberately stood in front of the kitchen door, blocking the police's line of sight. Fortunately, the attentive policewoman discovered the bloodstains left on the glass fragments. She pushed my cousin aside and entered the kitchen, saving me just as I was on the brink of death. She also turned off the gas stove and opened the kitchen window, preventing the assailant's planned explosion. I was taken to the hospital by the policewoman for treatment. The police left at the scene were investigating the traces of the murderer. Questioning my cousin about the appearance and characteristics of the killer, my cousin actually lied, saying she hadn't seen the assailant's face clearly. The evidence the police had was insufficient to identify the assailant. On the surface, my cousin cooperated with the investigation, but in reality, she didn't reveal any details. The case remained unsolved for a long time, gradually turning into an unresolved mystery, and I became the only victim in the case. Because my cousin deliberately concealed the casualties, I missed the best time for rescue. The doctor said that the dirty blood in my brain was pressing on the brain nerves, causing me to develop dementia, and even after surgery, I would not be able to return to a normal level. I had just been admitted to Tsinghua University as a graduate student and should have had a bright and promising future. But because of an unwarranted disaster, my entire life was ruined. My parents refused to give up on me and took me back to our hometown, keeping me by their side to care for me. During that time, I continued to seek justice online, rallying the help of netizens to find the perpetrators. The case of the intruder who broke in, committed rape, and caused injury became a widely discussed topic online. Later, my cousin, due to her tarnished reputation, couldn't find a husband and became the laughingstock of the village as an old maid. She felt that I had caused her to miss the chance to sleep with a handsome guy, and that I had ruined her reputation by calling the police, so she held a grudge against me. One day, a kind-hearted netizen contacted my parents online, claiming to have seen the thug who had harmed me. My parents hurriedly notified the police and arranged to meet the person at the police station for a detailed discussion, just as they were worried about having no one to take care of me at home. My cousin happened to come by for a visit, sitting at the door, drooling as I munched on lychees. I thought my parents had simply found someone to play with me, so, with a grin, I grabbed a handful of lychees to share with her, but she slapped the lychees out of my hand with a look of disgust, grabbed my neck, and shoved my head into the nearby foot-washing basin. The basin was only half full of water, but it was enough to drown me alive. I cried out for my parents to save me. But they were at a police station 10 kilometers away at that moment, anxiously waiting for the so-called netizen who claimed to have new clues. Unbeknownst to them, that netizen was actually my cousin in disguise. My cousin threw my body into the small river near our home, creating the illusion that I had accidentally drowned. My soul gradually rose, watching my parents cry until they fainted. At this moment, my hatred for my cousin reached its peak. Yinli, save me. My cousin's cry for help pulled me back from the painful memories. I touched the back of my head. It was a full, round, and intact back of the head, with no sunken knife wound. Only then did I realize that I had been reborn. I had been reborn to 3 years ago, the day my cousin was raped in her home. At this moment, my cousin's bedroom was pitch black, and she had no idea that the thug who attempted to rape her was actually a handsome man. So she screamed desperately for my help. In my past life, I was foolish enough to risk my life for her, grabbing a kitchen knife to fight the thug in a bloody struggle. Not only did I end up becoming a dementia patient, but she also resented me for it and even brutally killed me. I didn't have the omniscient perspective at the time, and my mind was completely focused on how to deal with the assailant. I had no idea that my cousin had fallen in love with the assailant at first sight and felt throughout that I was ruining her chances, so her seemingly foolish attempts to stop me were actually deliberate. She intentionally didn't save me, leaving me to wait for death in the kitchen, and lied when questioned by the police, blocking the police's line of sight and attempting to kill me. Every single one of the absurd things she did, partly because she was afraid of the criminals, but mostly out of resentment and revenge towards me. Her values are swayed by appearances. Her mind holds no compassion, only a romantic obsession. This kind of ungrateful and treacherous behavior, even heaven probably can't stand it, so it gave me a chance to start over. This time, even if the thugs kill her in bed and chop her into pieces, I won't interfere. Her cries for help are hurting my ears. I used to feel heart-wrenched hearing the cries for help, eager to rescue her. Now I just feel annoyed. I put on my Bluetooth headphones and turned the volume up to the max. I chose a cheerful song to celebrate my rebirth. Good day. The uplifting melody was accompanied by my cousin's pig slaughter-like screams in the next room. It was absolutely wonderful. In less than 10 minutes, the commotion next door suddenly quieted down a lot. Fearing unexpected changes, I picked up a paper cup, pressed its rim against the wall, and eavesdropped. My cousin sobbed and pleaded with the assailant, "Please, let me go. My cousin is in the next bedroom, and she's 100 times more beautiful than I am. I can help you lure her out. She has a great figure. I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cellar, my teeth chattering with rage. Calming down, I couldn't help but feel a lingering fear. Had this malicious woman said the same thing in a past life? If I hadn't rushed in with a kitchen knife at that moment, the consequences might have been far worse than just being slashed by the assailant. The assailant seemed swayed by Zhao Jinger's words, and footsteps echoed from the living room. The door was opened and then closed, deliberately creating the illusion that someone had left. Immediately after, a series of knocks echoed against my bedroom door. After knocking for a long time with no response, Zhao Jinger's angry shouts came from outside the door. Liang Yunli, how long are you going to keep hiding? The bad guys are gone. Your sister was bullied by the bad guys. And you pretended to be dead. Now that they're gone, why aren't you coming out quickly to take me to the hospital? I don't believe her nonsense. I only trust my own eyes. Through the crack in the door, there were clearly two dark figures standing outside. The criminals had never left. She tried to deceive me by claiming the criminals had left, then guilt-tripped me into taking her to the hospital. Once I opened the door, it would be like a lamb walking into a lion's den. How miserable my fate will be goes without saying. No matter how much she tries to persuade or deceive me, I always respond with the same unwavering approach. After all, I've locked the bedroom door, so the intruder won't be able to get in anytime soon. Moreover, I've already called the police. The police informed me they would arrive as soon as possible. As long as I hold out until the police arrive, I can stay safe and change the tragic ending of my previous life. However, this is far from enough. The criminals outside the door are not so kind as to let me go easily. I took the initiative, pretending to believe Zhao Jinger's lie. First, I tried to calm the assailant, then seized the opportunity to make my own request. Sorry, cousin, I just fell asleep. Are you okay? Are you badly hurt? Do you need to call the police? I can't find my glasses. I think I left them in the living room. Why is the living room so dark? Let me change my clothes first, and then I'll take you to the hospital. Can you help me look for my glasses in the living room? I'm wearing my glasses. I never left them in the living room. The reason for using this excuse was to get Zhao Jinger to turn on the living room light. Once she turned on the light, she would discover that the man attempting to rape her was a handsome guy. In reality, this thug wasn't handsome at all. He was dark and skinny, with a rat-like face, small eyes, a small mouth, and a hooked nose. It's just that he's very tall. Probably around 6'3". But Zhao Jinger likes this type. Given her personality of letting her values follow her aesthetic preferences, I believe that upon hearing this, she would be eager to pounce on the criminal. After all, in my previous life, she didn't get to sleep with the thug because of me, and that haunted her for a lifetime. When the time comes, the thug will be too busy dealing with her to bother me. My request didn't raise any suspicion between the two of them. The thug wouldn't dare to break down my door recklessly, because I have my phone with me. If things turn sour, he knows I'll definitely call the police. Sure enough, Zhao Jinger paused and said, no need to call the police. It's just a few minor injuries, but I'm scared alone, so I asked you to stay with me. I'll go help you find your glasses. Hurry up and get changed. The next second, one of the dark figures moved away from the door. The thug ordered Zhao Jinger to turn on the light. While he hid by the door, waiting to ambush, completely unaware that he himself would soon become the one being ambushed, the living room light suddenly squeezed through the crack of the bedroom door, and the square energy-saving lamp turned on, instantly brightening the living room as if it were daytime. Zhao Jinger pretended to have found her glasses and turned back to the door, calling for me to open it, but as she looked up, she met the man's face. She froze, staring blankly for quite a while. The thug was also stunned, because the creature before him clearly exceeded his understanding of women. My cousin's beauty cannot be described in words, as there are no precise terms to capture it. Let me give an example from one of her experiences. When I was a child, my cousin and I once went to my uncle's pig farm to help out. She was wearing a pinkish beige outfit. Before entering the pig pen, the worker guiding us tied a red string around her wrist. He even tied it into a bow. When it was my turn, she only glanced at me, said nothing, and didn't tie a red string. My cousin received this special treatment and thought she was more popular than me. Feeling quite smug while working, she was happy for several days afterward. I was not convinced because I wanted the red string with a bow too. So I secretly went to ask that uncle why he treated them differently. He replied with 2 sentences, Oh, my eyesight isn't so good anymore. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to tell her apart from the pigs. I immediately fell silent, no longer feeling regret over not getting the bow, only sympathy for my cousin. My cousin is the only child in the family, and my aunt and uncle feel they owe her because of her appearance. So they are especially doting on her, from childhood to adulthood. They have done everything in their power to give her whatever she wanted, almost never refusing. They treat my cousin like a princess, but they didn't give her the looks that match that status. Therefore, in the matter of finding a boyfriend, my cousin repeatedly hit a wall. However, people are visual creatures. My cousin likes handsome guys, but handsome guys prefer beautiful women. But Zhao Jing'er clearly didn't realize that she herself is not a beauty. She couldn't help but want to get close whenever she saw a handsome guy, so without a second thought, she reached out and touched the robber's face, but she was too short, only half the robber's height. She couldn't reach his face, so she had to settle for the second best and touched the robber's second face. The thug thought it would be the same with the lights off, but he didn't expect to fail when the lights were turned on. Zhao Jing'er gave him a flirtatious glance. Imitating the greasy tone of a domineering CEO, "Hey handsome, I'll give you another chance, let's continue." The thug, looking somewhat distraught, grabbed Zhao Jing'er's sleeve and moved her hand away, then he tightly covered his crotch. As the two were locked in a stalemate, I deliberately asked Zhao Jing'er from inside the bedroom, "Cousin, did you find your glasses? Do you still need me to go out?" She didn't respond. Instead, she nestled contentedly into the arms of the assailant. Even taking a deep sniff of his clothes with her nose, even when the assailant held a knife to her neck and desperately tried to push her away, she showed no sign of fear at all. At that moment, she felt no fear of the criminal, only a desire to get close to the handsome man. The criminal couldn't take it anymore and pushed her away, heading for the door, seeing the duck that was almost in her mouth about to fly away. Zhao Jing'er panicked instantly. She grabbed his hand and screamed at the top of her lungs, "You can't leave, you still have to be my boyfriend, otherwise, I'll have my cousin call the police and have you arrested." The thug stared at Zhao Jing'er with disbelief, his heart filled with extreme bitterness and regret. He pushed Zhao Jing'er hard, intending to rush out the door. "Haven't even turned the doorknob yet." From behind me came my sinister voice, "I've already recorded your face. If you dare to run, I'll call the police right now. If you know what's good for you, you'll obediently go inside with my cousin and continue doing what she wants. Otherwise, you'll be eating prison food." The thug immediately gave up any thought of fleeing, widened his eyes to look at me, and put on a pitiful expression as if he were about to cry. He clasped his hands together and begged Zhao Jing'er for mercy. "Big sister, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I will wash my hands of this and never do bad things again. Since it's my first time, can you let me go?" The man's eyes were filled with tears, his eye sockets slightly red, and his dark cheeks flushed with a dusty red. This was the most vulnerable moment of his life, but what he didn't know was that, in Zhao Jing'er's eyes, a handsome man's tears were her stimulant. She couldn't help but aim her phone at the thug and take a photo that she thought had a perfect angle. Then she casually sent it to me. She then waved the photo on her phone at the man and said, "Now the conditions have changed. I want to marry you. If you don't agree, this photo will be sent to the police by my sister immediately." The thug completely broke down after hearing this. Zhao Jing'er pulled the person back into the bedroom and forcibly took possession of him. The unbearable sounds next door lasted for half an hour. Zhao Jing'er secretly recorded a short video midway, just in case it might come in handy later. After finishing, Zhao Jing'er lit a cigarette, leaned against the headboard, and contentedly puffed away. The man beside her seemed as if his soul had been drained, lying in her arms with a face as pale as death. He silently shed 2 streams of remorseful tears. The thugs had thought that by obediently giving themselves over to Zhao Jing'er, everything would be settled. But just as they finished, a rapid knocking sound came from outside the door. That's right, the police had arrived. The thug didn't even bother to put on his clothes. Scrambling off Zhao Jing'er's bed like a stray dog, under Zhao Jing'er's bewildered gaze, he darted around like a headless fly, desperately searching for an escape route. But we live on the 15th floor, and all the windows have protective bars installed, so the door is the only exit. Left with no other choice, he steeled himself and decided to rush out the door. He planned to knock down the police blocking the entrance and then escape. As soon as he stepped out of the room, he suddenly collided with a warm embrace. Several police officers pinned him down, subduing him in just 10 seconds and presenting him with a pair of silver handcuffs. Only after confirming that the criminal had been captured did I calmly walk out of the bedroom, upon learning that I was the one who called the police and that there were no casualties throughout the incident. The officers took the three of us to the police station for questioning. Looking at the once vicious criminal from my past life, now in such a sorry state, my heart was filled with relief at having survived the ordeal. In this life, I will not only not be killed, I will also take revenge for everything they owe me in a way they never expected. When the police questioned her at the station, Zhao Jinger's behavior was strikingly similar to that of her previous life. Zhao Jinger's infatuation took over, and when the police asked about her relationship with Qin Duanfang, she still clung to his arm with a lovesick expression, replying with eyes full of affection, "He is my boyfriend, and we are about to get married. If I hadn't experienced everything from my past life, I would probably be deeply suspicious at this moment that Qin Duanfang had cast some kind of spell on her." Qin Duanfang detested Zhao Jinger to the extreme, repeatedly pushing her away with his hands. However, Zhao Jinger was like a piece of dogskin plaster with a spring attached. No matter how many times she was pulled away, she would tirelessly and fiercely stick back on each time, until Qin Duanfang's temper flared, and in a moment of unbearable frustration, he punched her in the eye right in front of the police. The police grew suspicious of Zhao Jinger's words, and after restraining Qin Duanfang, they questioned Zhao Jinger again about their relationship. I thought I would get a different answer from her, but she just heartlessly covered her eyes. She said with a smile, "He really is my boyfriend. We were just having a little argument. It's fine." The questioning officer felt a wave of darkness before his eyes and could only shake his head with a bitter smile. Then they called me into the interrogation room, hoping to get some new progress on the case. Before I entered the interrogation room, I intentionally consulted with the female officer who was trying to calm my emotions, putting aside the fact that Zhao Jinger forcibly occupied Qin Duanfang. The female officer said that if the case is established, Qin Duanfang's case is considered attempted rape with entry into a residence, with a baseline sentence of around 3 years. However, since he obtained the victim's forgiveness and demonstrated a candid confession, his sentence would be further reduced by approximately 50% on top of the 3-year baseline. In other words, the scumbag who severely injured me in my previous life and ruined my future prospects will serve at most a year and a half in prison in this life. If he behaves well in prison, he may even receive a sentence reduction or parole. What about me, who was left with a dented skull and turned into a disabled person in my past life because of him? Does that just mean I was unlucky? I can't accept it, and I certainly can't let him get away with such a huge advantage for nothing. But after all, the past life is the past life. I can't exactly tell the police that he caused me serious injury in my previous life, then people would just think I'm crazy. As I was racking my brains, I glanced at the lovey-dovey Zhao Jinger and the numb Qin Duanfang before entering the interrogation room. At that moment, the tangled mess in my heart suddenly unraveled. Since Zhao Jinger is so eager to be with Qin Duanfang, I'll grant her that wish. I want to see what kind of life she can live in this lifetime without my interference. The police asked me, what exactly is the relationship between Qin Duanfang and Zhao Jinger? I grabbed the table with both hands and hurriedly apologized. "Sorry, officer, there seems to be a bit of a misunderstanding here. You might have come all this way for nothing. It was Zhao Jinger who brought her boyfriend home without letting me know, and they had a little argument. I mistakenly thought there was a burglar in the house, but she just explained it to me. Qin Duanfang really is Zhao Jinger's boyfriend. I was mistaken." In the end, the case was not established. Qin Duanfang was acquitted and released. After leaving the police station, he hurriedly shook off Zhao Jinger's arm and took off running. But what good would running do? I found his ID card. While he was tussling with Zhao Jinger, half of his ID card was sticking out of his back pocket. I quickly snatched it out. He didn't notice. Moreover, Zhao Jinger still had the video she had just recorded in her hand. I handed my ID card to Zhao Jinger, and her eyes instantly lit up. Qin Duanfang didn't run far before obediently turning back under Zhao Jinger's threat. That video became evidence of Qin Duanfang's home invasion and rape. And his lost ID card became Zhao Jinger's leverage against him. I went the extra mile and helped them book a ride to the Civil Affairs Bureau to get their marriage certificate. In this lifetime, with my help, Zhao Jinger married the thug she liked, just as she wished. The two of them played out a love story of a home invasion robbery through their real-life experiences, but selfish people don't feel grateful for my help. The first thing Zhao Jing'er did after getting married was to borrow my apartment to use as their wedding home. With several months left before graduate school started, I thought about working to earn some tuition and living expenses. That's why I rented this apartment near the company. Originally, I was sharing it with another colleague, but they suddenly quit halfway through, found a new job in the neighboring city. There are still 2 months left until the rent is due. That colleague was very kind and paid the rent for the remaining 2 months before leaving. In the previous months, Zhao Jing'er had been idle at home in her hometown. Every day, her mission is to go on blind dates like crazy, but after going on over 100 dates in a row, the men she met either didn't meet her standards, or she didn't meet theirs. She's met every unmarried young man from all the nearby villages. She thinks there are more handsome guys in the city than in the village. And after hearing that I'm interning in the city, she started making a fuss about coming to stay. I was firmly against it at first, but my aunt and uncle pleaded with my parents. The older generation values mutual support among relatives, so they took it upon themselves to agree on my behalf. My aunt and uncle's intention was for her to find a job here, so she wouldn't be criticized for being unemployed when it came to matchmaking. They even gave her a large sum of money to cover her share of the rent and utilities with me, but when she came, she was empty-handed, and after staying for nearly a month, she didn't share any expenses with me. When I asked her to split the utility bills, she brushed it off, saying she had no money. She ordered takeout every meal, seafood or sushi, and the doorway was piled with her takeout containers and packages. It wasn't that she didn't have money, she just spent it elsewhere. She's been staying for free and still isn't satisfied, and now she actually wants to kick me out of the apartment I rented without paying a single cent. How shameless. Naturally, I didn't agree to such an unreasonable demand. Instead, I demanded that she move out immediately. Knowing she was in the wrong, she agreed on the surface, saying she would move out before I got off work. But when I finally got home after working overtime all day, I actually found my luggage piled up messily at the door. The lock on the door had been changed, and my key couldn't open it at all. I called Zhao Jing'er, and she answered the phone but didn't speak. All I could hear on the other end was her heavy breathing. My hysterical accusations became part of her and Qin Duanfang's play. What's even more infuriating is that she even started a video call. At this moment, the two of them are entangled on the big bed in my room, and they even picked up the lubricant I keep by my bedside. Oh, wait, that's glue. A few days ago, the bottle for the strong adhesive got dirty, so I transferred it into an empty lubricant bottle. I had intended to remind her, but she hung up the phone, leaving me no chance to remind her. Not long after, an ambulance parked downstairs in the residential complex. A pair of naked men and women stuck together were carried out on a stretcher by several male nurses, who were trying hard not to laugh. Zhao Jing'er, that brainless thing, at this moment, instead of thinking about covering her ugly face to avoid making headlines, she even removed the clothes Qin Duanfang had placed over her head, pointing at my nose and cursing me. You did it on purpose, you vicious bitch. Are you jealous that I found a handsome boyfriend? You motherfucking son of a bitch. I'll kill you when I get out of the hospital. Faced with her insults, I just silently wiped away my tears. Then I turned the phone camera around, and my uncle's roar instantly came through the speaker, along with the look on my uncle's face, as if he had swallowed a fly. After witnessing this spectacular scene, who the hell are you trying to kill, you little brat? Shameful thing. Wait till I get there and break your legs. My uncle immediately left the group video call and bought the fastest high-speed train ticket, rushing from the village to the hospital. My aunt was busy apologizing to my parents and me on behalf of Zhao Jing'er. Upon hearing Zhao Jing'er's insults, my parents had initially intended to act magnanimous as elders and forgive her. But I just couldn't manage to fake it. The bitter smile on my face looked even uglier than crying, and at that moment, I regretted helping Zhao Jing'er, that ungrateful person, even more than I did. The stretcher was carried downstairs to the residential area. More and more onlookers gathered around. I thought Zhao Jing'er's social embarrassment wasn't enough, so I borrowed the shopkeeper's gong to help her make a scene, beating drums and gongs around Zhao Jing'er. The elderly folks who were originally chatting in the community square were all drawn in by the deafening sound of the gongs. They assumed someone in the community was celebrating a happy occasion, so they all gathered around to watch the excitement, only to stumble upon the explosive scene. Several aunties watched with flushed faces, all complaining, times have changed, the world is going downhill. The uncles, on the other hand, calmly picked up their phones and began recording the beautiful moments. The shameless couple on the stretcher lost their momentum to curse at me, looking so embarrassed they wished they could dig a hole and crawl into it. It wasn't until the stretcher was lifted into the ambulance that they felt as if they had been granted a reprieve. Little did they know, an even greater storm was yet to come. Zhao Jing'er was wheeled into the operating room. The doctors had never encountered such a shocking sight in their lives and had no idea where to begin. They could only be given anesthesia first, and then the glue was cleaned out bit by bit. My uncle rushed to the hospital as quickly as possible. I stood at the hospital entrance to greet him. By the time he arrived, the surgery was almost over, and the doctor smiled, saying that both patients were out of danger. While we waited, my uncle asked me about the whole story. I told him everything, adding a few embellishments, including but not limited to, my cousin came to me empty-handed, moved into my place, ate and drank for free, and refused to share the utility bills and rent. The intruder broke into the house intending to rape my cousin, but instead of getting angry, she willingly went to bed with him. I called the police and had the intruder arrested. But my cousin spoke up for him and even demanded that he marry her. Ignoring my advice, my cousin took matters into her own hands, married the intruder, kicked me out of the rental house, and moved him in to use it as their marital home. She changed the locks on the rental house, leaving me unable to enter. When I called her to open the door, she not only ignored my calls but also engaged with the intruder in my bed, and even secretly used my glue as lubricant, resulting in such an embarrassing and disgraceful situation. Finally, I wiped my tears with a tissue and added, "Uncle, I can forgive my cousin for hitting me, scolding me, and taking my house, but she can't wrong an innocent person. How can she turn the tables and accuse me of framing her when she secretly entered my room and used my things?" After hearing this, my uncle's face turned pale and then flushed with anger, veins bulging on his face and neck. The green light in the operating room lit up, and my uncle sprang to his feet. He looked around anxiously in the hospital corridor, as if searching for something. A baseball bat as thick as an arm accidentally fell out of my backpack. It rolled to my uncle's feet. I was about to reach down to pick it up, but I was a step too slow compared to my uncle. He picked up the baseball bat, weighed it in his hand, and then, without a word, walked into the operating room. My uncle was a retired soldier in his early years and had once killed a wild boar with his bare hands while patrolling in the mountains. I followed closely into the operating room. Zhao Jing'er had just regained consciousness, yet she wasn't staying in bed to rest properly. Instead, she was clamoring for the nurse to help her move to the same bed as Qin Duanfang. The nurse rolled her eyes in exasperation, speaking in a sarcastic tone. "After all the doctors went through so much trouble to separate you, now you want to stick back together. If you knew this would happen, why bother coming to the hospital? You might as well have stayed stuck together for life." Upon hearing this, the uncle's face flushed bright red, feeling as though he had never been so embarrassed in his entire life. Zhao Jing'er, shameless as ever, continued to yell at the nurse, completely unaware of the imposing presence of her father standing behind her. Her uncle's baseball bat was completely out of control, swinging with all its might toward Zhao Jing'er. Zhao Jing'er screamed in pain, but due to the agony in her lower body, she couldn't get out of bed and could only hide under the covers. Pulling them over her head, he didn't forget to call Qin Duanfang to save her. Qin Duanfang originally didn't want to meddle, but Zhao Jing'er's noise was giving him a headache. He reached out to block, grabbing his uncle's baseball bat. "Old man, stop hitting her." My uncle was already furious, and seeing the rapist who had slept with his daughter made him even more enraged. He stopped hitting Zhao Jing'er and instead swung the baseball bat at Qin Duanfang's head. My uncle hit him with such ferocity that he lost all restraint. Qin Duanfang's head was struck so hard that a large bump swelled up, and his face was scratched with several bloody marks. Thighs, arms, back, all took over a dozen hits. Zhao Jing'er was utterly heartbroken. Zhao Jing'er's lack of conscience completely redefined my understanding. She actually grabbed her own father's baseball bat and said without hesitation, "Old man, stop hitting him. He's your son-in-law. If you hit him again, I'll sever ties with you." Qin Duanfang, who was being beaten and feeling frustrated, saw his uncle-in-law freeze in shock. He seized the opportunity to snatch the weapon from his hands and took it for himself. He and his uncle-in-law began to wrestle with each other. I saw that things were going wrong and hurriedly went to pull Qin Duanfang. But I couldn't hold him back. Zhao Jing'er actually went to pull her uncle. hugging his arm, causing him to take several unnecessary hits from Qin Duanfang. Her uncle was completely heartbroken and immediately cut ties with Zhao Jing'er on the spot, covering his bruised and blackened eye socket. He left the operating room. After returning home, I vented my anger at my aunt, accusing her of spoiling Zhao Jing'er. He also said that from now on, he would consider Zhao Jing'er dead and that he no longer had this daughter. Although my aunt was also angry, she was more concerned about Zhao Jing'er's injuries. Zhao Jing'er had originally intended to be tough and go through a period of Cold War with her parents before reconnecting, but after her uncle left, the nurse told her that the surgery fees for her and Qin Duanfang had not yet been paid. The money Zhao Jing'er had brought with her had long been squandered, and she couldn't even come up with 20 yuan. Qin Duanfang was even more of a pauper. Even for a simple meal of braised chicken, he had to pay in 18 installments. Aside from being threatened, there was another hidden reason why he had agreed to marry Zhao Jing'er in the first place. I had revealed to him that Zhao Jing'er was an only child and that her family had a bit of money. He didn't believe it at first, but after seeing Zhao Jing'er's usual meals of seafood feasts costing hundreds of yuan, he was instantly convinced. That's why he reluctantly married Zhao Jing'er. Zhao Jing'er turned to look at me and asked to borrow money. Yinli, it was because we used the glue from your room that we ended up in the hospital. The responsibility for this matter lies entirely with you, so you should cover the medical expenses. Also, your brother-in-law and I are hungry. Go order 200 yuan worth of KFC and have it delivered. Her tone was calm and self-assured, and her shamelessness once again shattered my worldview. I sneered at her and showed her my account balance. There were tens of thousands of yuan inside, more than enough to cover their surgery fees. Her eyes lit up with a flicker of hope. I interrupted her with a displeased tone. What are you laughing at? I'd rather throw it into a wishing well to feed the turtles than give you a single flower. No other meaning. I'm just afraid the money might get moldy, so I'm taking it out to air. With that, I turned and walked away without looking back. Zhao Jing'er was so angry she pounded the bed and bit the quilt, but there was nothing she could do about me. Qin Duanfang couldn't stand it any longer and snatched her phone, borrowing tens of thousands from various lending platforms. After scraping together the money from all over, the surgery fee was finally paid. Zhao Jing'er watched Qin Duanfang with admiration as the difficult problem was easily solved. A flicker of guilt crossed Qin Duanfang's face, but he pretended to be calm and began to educate Zhao Jing'er on the benefits of borrowing from online lending platforms. Your parents are getting older and they're from the countryside. You can sneak out their phones and borrow a few million from online lending platforms. Then we'll have the down payment for our wedding home. You don't want to keep living in a rental after we're married, do you? Zhao Jing'er's level of understanding wasn't high, and now she was also blinded by love. Her eyes automatically added 10 levels of filters to Qin Duanfang, and she nodded at whatever he said. There aren't many doubts. I just casually asked, but neither of us has a job. How are we going to pay back so much money? Qin Duanfang replied with great certainty. Alas, nowadays those lending platforms are all usurious and illegal, so there's no need to repay them at all. Besides, your parents are getting old and don't have many years left to live. Once a person dies, the debt collectors can't do anything about it. Zhao Jing'er took it seriously and came up with an idea with Qin Duanfang. After she recovered from her injuries, she returned to her hometown and knelt before my aunt and uncle to apologize. She also lied to them, saying she had already cut ties with the scumbag and would continue to be their obedient good daughter. The elderly couple quickly let go of their anger. Seeing their own daughter return, they took turns feeding her chicken, duck, fish, and meat. However, Zhao Jing'er took advantage of their sleep and secretly used their phones in the middle of the night to download loan apps. During the day, he coaxed them into performing facial recognition under the pretense of job hunting. In the end, he borrowed 1.2 million yuan. Qin Duanfang demanded that Zhao Jing'er transfer all the money to his card, claiming it was for the down payment on their marital home. In reality, he planned to take the money and run. It's a pity I couldn't make his wish come true. When Zhao Jing'er suddenly dropped everything and returned to her hometown, I sensed something unusual was afoot, so I followed her back to my hometown. On the day she returned to the city, I went to visit my uncle with some fruit. I accidentally saw a text message from a loan app that popped up on his phone. My uncle initially thought it was a scam message, so he ignored it. It wasn't until I helped investigate and found out they had borrowed over 1 million yuan from these apps. After I carefully inquired, they finally realized that Zhao Jing'er had secretly used their phones to take out loans. They were so angry they almost fainted when they found out. Fortunately, the loan amount was within their means. So they had no choice but to help Zhao Jing'er fill this huge financial hole first. I immediately called Zhao Jing'er to warn her that the loan had been discovered and that she had better return the money as soon as possible, otherwise, her aunt and uncle would report her to the police. Zhao Jing'er immediately became anxious upon hearing this and hurriedly went to ask Qin Duanfang for money. Qin Duanfang was still trying to persuade her with his words, "Don't listen to her. How can taking money from your own parents be called stealing? Your parents only have you as a daughter, so it's only natural for them to give you money to buy a house." Zhao Jing'er was still lost in Qin Duanfang's sweet talk. Seeing that I couldn't reason with her, I decided to wake her up with practical action. "I've already called the police, and they'll be at your house soon. Do you really trust Qin Duanfang that much? Not afraid he'll run off with such a huge sum of money and find a woman 100 times more beautiful than you to be his wife?" The moment the police arrived at her door, Zhao Jing'er snapped out of her dreamlike state. However, even after helping the police locate Qin Duanfang, she continued to make excuses for him. By this point, Qin Duanfang's greed had been ignited by the over 1 million yuan, and he stubbornly refused to return the money. He revealed his true nature as a villain, pulling out a dagger and holding it against Zhao Jing'er's neck. Forcing her out of the neighborhood gate, Zhao Jing'er realized she had been betrayed and nearly scammed out of over 1 million yuan. Overwhelmed by anger, she actually tried to snatch Qin Duanfang's dagger. I, along with a group of relatives, blocked his escape route from behind. Qin Duanfang, finding himself in a dilemma, decided to throw caution to the wind and slit Zhao Jing'er's throat with a single stroke of his knife. Zhao Jing'er, enraged to the extreme, ignored the blood gushing from her neck and, holding on to Qin Duanfang, rushed toward a speeding truck on the road. The truck driver couldn't brake in time and sent the two obstructing figures flying several meters away. Zhao Jing'er died on the spot. The truck broke her waist, and her entire body was severed into two halves. Blood and flesh were mangled, and the death was gruesome. Qin Duanfang's situation was not much better either. He suffered severe brain trauma, became paraplegic with both legs amputated, and turned into a vegetative state. He would spend the rest of his life in a hospital bed. The good news is that my aunt and uncle managed to recover that over 1 million yuan. They were completely disillusioned with Zhao Jing'er, so her death didn't bring them much pain. Although they were also saddened, time gradually heals all wounds. Even better news is that they made a will, leaving all their property to me, to celebrate my graduate school admission. I was also given a car for commuting. In this life, the two scumbags who hurt me have all received the punishment they deserved, and these punishments were largely driven by their own greed. It was they who helped me push themselves into the hell of death with their own hands. This time, I got my wish to see the gate of Tsinghua University. Sunlight filtered through the dense green shadows of the trees, completely dispelling the gloom brought from my past life. I will run towards greater freedom. The end.